Rise to join me in the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting the Wahoo City Council Tuesday, November 14, 7 o'clock p.m. Announcement of public meeting notice is on the wall. Whole meeting to order and roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Carl Warford.
Here.
Ryan Diaz.
Here.
Chris Rappel.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Okay. Audience is 2 employees. And we'll move on. Department head report. Joe?
All right. Well, I think this was with October, it was about our end of year, so I just kind of did a whole annual report for us. Mission statement, our team has changed a little bit this year, if you don't know. I got our names and addresses, or names and emails. If you want to get a hold of anybody or talk to any of my officers, feel to reach out to them. Rich Bertera, he's my newest guy. He's about a 5-year veteran of police work. Got lucky to pick him up. He during the teammates contest, I think on his first day, he ended up getting second. So that's one thing about Rich when we did a fundraiser for teammates. Another new guy, Wyatt Brozier, he went from part-time to full-time. He just got back from military deployment, so we're glad to have him back. We're at full staff, first time in a long time. Calls for service, we had a little bit higher than normal this year. And then, what's the reason? Probably just the ebb and flow of the time, I'm guessing. I don't really know. You know, we look back. Pretty significant. But the arrests have went up a little bit too. So our guys have been staying busy. So citations have went up as well. So the police dog, we got the police dog, actually went through certification today with the dog in Omaha. We did a bunch of deployments, had to go around and get tested. They have a course that you have to do once a year. The dog went through the last 8 in a row, which is it's a lot and a lot of pressure on the dog, but it just buzzed through all eight different locations, barn stalls, horses, kicking and stuff in the meantime. She did really good. So she passed.
How old is this dog?
The dog is 6.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's
Good.
6 years old. We had 61 deployments of it. And I asked some of the other guys from some of the agencies, because they had Crawford County, Ralston was there today, Papillion. I forget who the other officers were from. Dixon County. They had their dogs there. And I asked those guys, the Papillion guys, they said they average about 50 to 70 deployments a year. So we're about on course with that. And a deployment doesn't mean you find drugs. It actually never finds drug. It just finds odor of drugs, So we try to keep it busy. Some of the things we've done this year, we did the police club, which is where we get together and we do like some demonstrations and stuff with the sheriff there at the park. We helped with the fundraiser for teammates, run to do a fundraiser for them. We did the bike rodeo with 3 Rivers. The Boo in Wahoo, we were participants of that, different parades and whatnot. Down at the fairgrounds, we had a fundraiser for the youth service ladies. We didn't do real good. We were busy all night. We were way busier than any other thing that night, but we weren't collecting a lot of cash. Parents were like steering their kids away, but then we had a bunch of stuff to give away, so we had fun horsing around with the kids. But we really didn't raise a lot of money. I think a few $100 we ended up giving to them. But then we did the boxing club. I think we had, I forget how many kids do it. I think maybe 27 kids. It was every Wednesday night all summer long. So we had a good number of kids doing that. We're doing the deer check now. The deer check's been busy. The deer numbers, I can't tell you if they're up or down. Everybody tells me it's slow. ATVs, we registered 41 ATVs this year. We really haven't had any problems with them, UTVs. I haven't heard, if anything, I've heard people surprised that it's not been, the chaos has not ensued, with the ATVs turning around. It's been pretty thing. Some of the grants we got this year, we got some new scanners for the e-citations. And one of the things with the e-citations, if you write somebody, say, ticket for marijuana, or so you're going to book somebody in jail and stuff, sometimes they're at your desk when you're writing tickets, not at a cruiser. And it takes a while to go up there and turn your cruiser on, upload it. We got it, so now every computer that an officer has is going to have a scanner on it, so they'll be able to write do the e-citations right there. I think we got a couple vests for some officers through LARM grant. The boxing club, it was free to everybody. It was raised by Amber Palin at Youth Services. She got us a grant to help us with the equipment and stuff, and it was a nice little donation. I think we got like 30 pairs of boxing gloves and mouthpieces for the kids and hand wraps for all the kids. And then she even got drinks and waters for the kids during practice and stuff. I think, what did she bring in? She got cookies and stuff the one time, like everybody's all sweaty and worked out, and they're like, nobody wants to eat cookies or something after they get done with that.
The boxing club was throughout the summer on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that again next year?
Yeah, we'll do it again next
Good.
year.
Good.
So
You think it was a success?
yeah, the
Good.
kids. Yeah,
Good.
I got to know a lot of the kids. A lot of the
sure.
kids were. A lot of them is kind of a different crowd. I would say it was a lot of kids that typically that you don't see on the sports fields. Some of them were just maybe a few wrestlers were in there, but there was kids from all over the county. There was kids from Ashland coming up, kids from all over the place were coming here to do it.
I'd heard a little bit about it, but I didn't know much. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that it was successful.
Yeah. And as far as we're waiting to hear back on a grant. We got a grant in for some bunkers, some body bunkers, some shields. I don't know if you know that. Al put some other stuff on the grant with the Jack Lewis this year. We haven't heard back from that. I've also, just so you know, I've been in contact, and I mentioned, Melissa, I want to talk to you sometime about the rifles. I think I brought it up before. We got our AR rifles. They're older models. They're carry handles. They are not able to equip them with lights and optics for precision shooting and things like that. The State Patrol just upgraded some. We can go through some stuff. And I was talking to Chris Baker of the old KFAB radio host. He runs a nonprofit organization, Hold the Line, and he's got something going with that. So maybe we can get some help on something with him too for that. But that was just something I think last week ago or two weeks ago, I had a meeting with him and the sheriff up in not Butler but Dodge County. We were talking to him. Our cruisers, our state of our cruisers, we got, you can see our mileage. You can see about how many miles we drove. 130, we got 136 in the Charger, 159 in the main Explorer that we drive, 160 in the other one that's kind of been, we've had some equipment taken off of it, just kind of a spare right now. And then we got 112 on the K9 vehicle. We did pick one up from Sid Dillon. We got it for $46,000. And now some people ask. So I think Stuart, you asked me last time one of the reasons why we went with the Sid Dillon Tahoe versus something maybe that we could have got cheaper. And I looked at that, and one of the things is when I got here, I went up there, and some of my friends from Omaha Police Department said, "Oh, you got to go to Sid Dillon and talk to Ron out there. He's got the best deals anywhere you'll find for cruisers and stuff." So I said, "Oh, okay." And I remember when I was in Ashland there, the one cruiser that we got actually was picked up by Sid Dillon, the Ashland officer that got the K9. He got it through the state bid with Ron that year. I think the next one we got from Lee Sapp. But it was nice. I thought it was a very good price. And one of the things that you look at when some of these vehicles that you get, Somebody told me about a website where you can go and you can buy a government surplus vehicle and stuff. And somebody was telling me about one they got for about half the price of this that only had 14,000 miles. And I said, well, that sounds like a good deal on the surface. But I go, that vehicle was, several years old, and how many hours had that vehicle sit idling on the side of airport stuff? It might run 12 hours, so they're not putting on a lot of miles, but they're idling all the time. We had the canine officer down there in Ashland when I first started down there. He would let his cruiser run all the time. It'd start because he had the canine in there, and he let it run the whole shift, and the engine burned up at 67,000 miles. The engine was shot, and they had to end up replacing the whole cruiser. So you ain't going to putting a lot of miles on those. And that's why when I got here, I make sure my guys shut their cars off when they get out and lock them up and start it in. It's kind of a pain in the butt because they don't like doing it because you got to restart all the electronics as far as the e-citations and the computers and stuff that the kids like. But that's one thing. The other reason I thought the vehicle looks good. It's bought local at the cheapest price you're going to find, and it's got great warranties on it. And the other thing is it's a representative of the city, and I think the city wants to, you don't want to have people driving around and seeing, rust wheel well, rust and stuff like you do. So that's one of the reasons. Police station, no real upgrades on the police department side of the house. We're meeting our training hours. We're about all done. We're staying certified. We don't have anything else. Do you guys got any questions for me about stuff? No?
This first year with the ATV, UTVs, you're saying it's been fairly successful. You haven't done any citations or any citations?
No, we haven't even had one speeding on them or anything.
That was my next question was, have you had much contact?
We had one report of a drunk driver on one time. That was
Okay.
about it, but it wasn't a case we could prove. But other than that, we haven't had a single problem.
Anything you would suggest or change at this point?
No,
Okay.
no.
Have you had inquiries as the golf cart thing comes in January 1st?
I keep referring them to you guys. Yep.
Well, we had more inquiries after we completed the process.
Not really. We had people still registering their ATVs and UTVs up through
Somebody called the other day for one.
say October.
Somebody called literally the one night. Yeah.
But other than that, once we
Actually, it
kind
was
of
last Friday. They
put
called.
out
They
there,
called Friday
those
night.
questions
The offices
stopped.
were closed, and we said, "Yeah, you got to wait till Monday." So
Right.
yeah, they're still doing it.
Okay.
It was a couple years ago, we had a bunch of dangerous dogs we were dealing with. You're dealing with that now. Do you have dangerous dogs being reported?
We get them. We have problems with dogs too. Yeah, they're always a problem, and they're a problem. Yeah, hopefully yeah.
I don't miss that.
Yeah. We had a real problem with one. We had a problem with one that cost us unfortunately too much money, but they have since moved out of town. So
So with the uptick of citations and stuff like that you've seen in the last, year compared to the previous years and stuff like that, is there a trend on anything that, looks concerning or?
no, I think it's just a proactive approach to doing police work. That changes things a little bit. Hopefully, while maybe it goes up for a while, hopefully we see a trend downward eventually. That's the goal. Hopefully the rest get, people make sure that they like, hey, let's move, somewhere else. Let's move back to Omaha. Let's move somewhere else. That's the goal.
I'm starting to get, maybe it's 2 or 3 people that have asked me when the Department of Transportation works on the roundabout, starting in the spring. It's a ways off, but they're wondering what's going to be the detour. Is there going to be one, or are they going to?
So I can answer that.
Okay.
So there are 3 phases to that project, and for all but, the first phase, there will still be traffic that will be able to flow through. As they progress through it, the detour and 109 north gets blocked off, the detour will, for that route will be north of Fremont over to Cedar Bluffs and south. Now, we all know that that's not going to be the detour that people will take. They will go to the airport access road and go through that way.
Okay.
So
That's
there
what
will
I'm
be
telling
some
them.
conversations that we'll have to have about enforcement, particularly when it comes to trucks, right, semis. But Department of Transportation doesn't have the authority to detour onto, private streets or city-owned streets, right? When southbound, trying to think, remember, there will be a point where the detour there will be a detour through Wahoo on the old highway over to Chestnut Street and north as well, so. Or maybe it's to get to, like John Deere, you'll have to go south on Chestnut and around it, so.
Not too bad.
They did put that roundabout on Highway 6 and 66 down there in Ashland, and I know a lot of people were concerned about that with the Husker games and things like that, because Highway 6 gets, I mean, it gets really bad, and sometimes it gets backed up all the way, you know, on there, Gretna, all the way back to Ashland. And honestly, they said with the roundabout, they said it went pretty smooth. So people were kind of happy with it, and I think once they get used to it, it seemed like it went pretty well. They got a temporary thing set up there now, and it's, yeah. All right, well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay,
So, where did I put this? Update.
update on Kennedy campus.
That's, I don't really have much to add on that, I don't know whether, sorry. I think at the time that we put this on the agenda, we were expecting to have some updates from, Destiny.
Oh, this
Church.
is on that portion,
Yes,
yeah, so,
yeah.
unfortunately, I know in talking with Travis Beavers, I had asked him last week if we in fact had gotten the parking lot submission application and the plan set that was represented would be coming shortly after the last council meeting, we discussed this. And at least as of last week, Travis had not gotten it in order to put it on the planning commission meeting. So at a minimum, it's gonna get kicked off until next month's planning commission meeting, wouldn't come to you until after that.
That was on the parking?
That was on the, well, it was supposed to be the parking and the plan set together, because
Oh,
the parking is one of the cogs that pertains to that, but the way we had structured that, the replat of the entire portion, the plan set, parking, all of it was supposed to happen simultaneously. I know the property owner had asked, and has continuous over the last year or so, asked to try to bifurcate or separate out these things so they can handle them piecemeal. However, in the development agreement, it says everything's supposed to be collective, because we wanted to make sure one piece isn't done 1 year and it takes years for another piece to happen. And so,
I'm pretty sure the parking was on the planning and zoning meeting for November. Parking or the application.
I think the materials weren't submitted is the issue, so he never came in with the materials.
Well,
I didn't attend the planning commission meeting, and
I thought it will move to the council when they do something else. Maybe that's what it is.
okay.
When we met with them, the old council chambers, Travis and I don't know, Ryan, were you there? No. It was the two of them and Travis and I. That, in theory, he never goes by that, they could have everything done by the last meeting in December. But, say, sometimes they drag.
You say in theory, but
I mean,
correct me if I'm wrong, but are we not, wasn't the agreement to have all of their plans at least submitted and have a
yeah.
permit handled by the end of this year? I mean, we're running right up against it.
Well, actually, the development agreement was towards the end of last year. It was supposed to be done. They're the better part of 9-10 months past due at this point in time, under the development agreement. And so that's where, we continuously ask them where they are. That then prompts looking at the surfacing of the parking lot and doing something, but not bringing the whole thing together like we had anticipated and wanted them to. And so that's where, I probably need to talk to Travis and see if the last time I talked to him is in fact still true, which is he doesn't have a complete plan set as of yet. If he doesn't, then in my opinion, something needs to happen in terms of requiring them to show up at a council meeting, require them to explain the reason for the delay, and make clear that the delay isn't appropriate, and if necessary, we have to take the next step. Now, nobody wants to do it because the project as proposed is a great project, right?
Yeah.
But we need to
The
see the
problem
project
is that,
keep
is it gonna
moving.
come to fruition? That's been the issue, right? Like, it's all well and good to tell us these are all the hopes and dreams we have, but something has gotta be done, and this is what, absolutely wanna see it done the way it's proposed, but if that is gonna mean that it's another 15 years and we're still sitting here with this undone, it's becoming an issue.
Yeah.
And I thought that, there were certain penalties written in there for not getting this stuff done on time.
No, unfortunately, that was one of the things in the earlier drafts that I had included was a liquidated damage clause, but it was something in order to get them to sign the document they wouldn't agree to. And so
We have a signed document with no.
So we have yes, exactly. We have a document which arguably we could bring an action for injunction to try to enforce, but that's not cheap and easy for the city to do. That we also always have the authority to bring an unsafe building declaration on the gym. That's the teeth that the city has in this whole process, is to say, we've waited long enough, we want to compel the demolition.
So then instead of a project, all we have is demo and we're knocking it down. And It's
Exactly.
not a project anymore at all,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily what we want to do. All right. Well, that stinks.
Yeah.
I thought we were coming up on dates that were gonna force their hand or there were penalties.
Yeah, there was some criteria initially on the East Hall structure, but they did do what was necessary on East Hall.
Yeah, and they did. I know they
It
did
just
a lot
was
of
the
work.
gym. At the time, of course, it was coming off of COVID, so they were really reluctant to commit to anything
Yeah.
that would have a penalty on the gymnasium because they weren't sure where the pricing and the labor shortages and the like would be, but obviously we're beyond that at this
What
point.
if we were to add an addendum or to the original contract and say, starting at this point, you guys have until this date, and we are gonna put liquidated damages in there, and this is gonna force your hand to either do it or move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, realistically, the only way we get them to sign that though is to say, well, if you don't sign it, then we're just gonna declare it as unsafe and knock it down, which once again, isn't really what we wanna do
Well,
either, right?
Yeah.
Do they really want this project? I mean,
Yeah.
that they're-
Well, and that's where I think, initially we had talked about the granting of some leniency, which is what we've done in terms of, allowing them to handle East Hall more on a piecemeal basis. Get the roof shored in, handle the windows, secure the building, do those sorts of things, but not require the interior of the structure to be remodeled and done with, right? Allowing some leniency with respect to the replatting process, allowing some leniency with respect to the parking lot and the surface materials that would be allowed on that, right? I mean, so I think the city's done its side on this, but I agree with you that it's time for them to put up or shut up from the perspective of if there's a reason for any kind of meaningful delay, you need to explain why it is, and you need to be very transparent on it, or else, right?
I did have a
It's the
conversation.
realistic.
I did have a conversation with Rich last week, just on a kind of unrelated topic, and mentioned that, we were eager to see, hopefully by the end of the year, the parking and building plans and all that, and he did mention that he does not have them. So, delays on their end.
Yeah, so the whole idea was,
that
they had to
is-
have it planned by now, so we could issue the permit, then the permit gives them 1 year to complete the project, or.
Well, and we had actually granted them 2 years at the time. It provided that was one of the other carrots you dangle, is normally of 1 year, but we were willing to grant them 2 years for that. They hypothetically, what should have happened is they should be a year into construction at this point.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they commented one time, he doesn't have his permit, and Travis said, well, bring us the engineer's certificate, the building is sound. Well, he says it is. Well, then bring it to us, and he has it.
Yeah, the only thing they did provide a structural engineer's report, but the structural engineer's report, in my opinion at least, certifies that it actually is unsound in its current state. It acknowledges that there are structural deficiencies and then suggests what should be necessary to do that. And what they would like to do, of course, is shore the roof in, make the property structurally sound, but that would leave it a shell. And
Right.
nothing would be done with it, right? And
Well, he wanted to pour
Yeah.
a cement floor in there so they could put scaffolding up to put the roof on.
yeah,
And he said, well, you do that at your own risk.
yeah.
So, well,
Okay.
as it continues. Melissa, you have more.
Yeah, I do have more. So, in the packet was the 2023 fiscal year occupation tax report. That's a statutory requirement and it was posted on the city's website. If you have any questions on that, please let me know.
When it says designated use, that's the use of the people doing it, not the use of the funds we collect off the tax, correct?
No, that is the designated use of the occupation tax that it's collected. So when we authorized that occupation tax, it was intended for a specific purpose. So, for instance, you see the garbage and refuse haulers, and it was collected for solid waste management activities. That goes into a specific fund for solid waste, and we use that to purchase, we've used it to purchase equipment that we need to manage the tree pile and leaf pile. We've used it for grants for household hazardous waste cleanup. We've used it for...
The one I was more concerned about is the one that just says for the purpose of raising revenue.
And that's the way the ordinance was written when it was authorized. So that's the way all of those, yes.
I feel like raising revenue isn't necessarily a reason for tax. That seems awkward to me, clumsy a bit.
Those been in place for a while, so those ordinances are,
Because I said so, is what that sounds like.
yes, because I said
We
so.
might need money.
You need to pay us, because
Right,
we'd
yeah.
like to have some money. Like that doesn't seem right. Okay.
If you want to pass those down. Sorry. This is I'm trying to do a better job of doing a written report to the council, and so I apologize for not getting this in the packet, but I'll briefly go through this with you. Do you have enough, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have an extra.
Status update on our projects, Wilmer Ridge. I think I reported at the last council meeting that there was an issue with the paving machine and not dropping the rebar as it should. So the contractor provided us with a proposal that provides stitching with rebar of the panels together. I don't fully understand it, which is why I rely on engineers to help guide us through. Both our engineer from Olson as well as the developer's engineers with JEO agreed that this was an acceptable way to rectify the issue and with an extended warranty. So that work was done this week. The project's nearly complete. We have a scheduled walkthrough for Thursday morning, and then JEO Development's holding a ribbon cutting on Thursday afternoon. If you recall, it's probably been a year and a half ago, we entered into a contract for an annexation study with 5 rural planning. There has been a little bit of a struggle in figuring out a presentation platform to use that can keep the information up to date in terms of taxable value, property owners, zoning, all of those things. So there's been a little bit of a struggle in getting that to come about. Ryan and I met with Bobby from 5 Rural, and then and we kind of reviewed what she has proposed, and then she has asked for an increase in the contract balance of $7,500. This is for an extra 100 hours of work to be done, but it's later on in the agenda, and we can talk about it further at that time. The loans for water and sewer projects are on the agenda. North Highlands Phase 2, there's a couple items on the agenda for creating a street improvement district, as well as considering the resolution of necessity for storm and sanitary sewer improvements. We haven't taken any action on a comprehensive plan update. A little bit of what I've been doing. On October 25th, I attended a design coordination meeting for the radio project. It was about 3 hours long, and I'm telling you, you don't know what you don't know. Radios are complicated, and I learned a lot by sitting in on that meeting. But the gist of it is that we want to, I think there was good conversation about design and such, making sure that the system is not bringing us up to the point where we are today, but allowing us to grow as needed into the future. And if you have some specific questions about that, I can connect you with the person who can answer them, because I cannot. But one thing that was brought up in the meeting is there was a lot of conversation about communication inside of buildings, and that this system will not necessarily, it will help help the communication, but inside the buildings, there's actually a national fire insurance code that a lot of communities are following, that requires some sort of repeater to be established inside of the building because of the
90% coverage within building for EMS and first
right.
responders.
So that is something that we'll be looking at. It does add a little bit of a cost to the construction cost, but when you're talking about facilities like schools or public meeting locations where that communication is essential to the safety of the occupants, I think that's something to not overlook. You have a perplexed look on your face, Carl.
Nope, just
Okay.
thinking that through. Thinking right now, where would that affect us, right? Two schools.
It's really Wahoo Public we've had difficulty with, the jail we've had difficulty with. I don't know, I can't recall exact situations at Newman where we've had the issue.
But I do know that we put repeaters in primary response vehicles too, that we can kick in right now in the system we have now. That's what I was trying to think through, is I wonder if are those repeaters that we have in the vehicles, at least for today, because while we can talk about what we're doing in the future, the school's
Sure.
already under construction.
Right.
Nobody's got to abide to that today, so we still have to make sure that as the school gets even bigger, we've got more we have to penetrate, that the receivers and things, those
yeah.
repeaters that we have in the vehicles today can be updated to make sure that they continue to
Right.
function.
There was quite a bit of conversation about current situation, and I would refer you to Grant and Cody, because they were both there. And if the fire department would like to discuss it, maybe even with law enforcement, about what a recommended policy going forward would be, that would be
I know
a
that
good thing.
I deal with this quite often with my work. Nebraska is one of the few states that doesn't have some type of regulation or amendment out there that has a requirement for any building new built has to have at least 90% coverage within that. I know Sarpy County has been looking at adopting some type of regulation throughout the county, and it's probably something that's going to be coming to the state sooner than later.
Sorry, I didn't.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point, that really feels like something the county should be doing as they're putting in this new radio system, that should be a county-wide regulation, because while, yes, we could say that for the city of Wahoo, realistically, the school's
But
already under construction, that school's already under construction. I don't know how much else we have going on in the next 10 or 15 years, but the county's definitely going to have it, so they're the ones that really need to be looking at doing something like that. But
So I'm sure you've seen in the news, the governor's, one of his big focuses is property tax reduction here in the state. And I have been participating in some conversations about a potential impact of EPIC, the consumption tax, and the impact that it may have on local government. And I was then from that invited by the league to sit down with a discussion on the city budget, the city budgeting process with the state budget director, as well as the Pillen's chief of staff. And so I went to the league offices, and we had actually, I feel like, was a pretty good conversation. One of the most impactful things that both of those state employees talked about was if you remember in our budget, the green little graphic design thing that I had. If you own a house of $250,000, your monthly property tax bill is $106, and they were like, comparing that to your cable bill, that's very relatable for people, and it really helped them understand kind of, it was very visual and they could easily understand that. One of the other things that we talked about was the amount of cash on hand that local government has. Through a query on the state auditor's website, you could pull down all of this municipal budgets or the county budgets and look at collectively very easily, if you know anything about Excel, figure out what the cash on hand is that all these entities have. And so we spend a lot of time talking also about what is included in that cash on hand. So, you know, we as a city have $4 million on hand. The utilities has a sizable amount of money on hand, but there's reasons why we have that on hand. You know, we explained we may close on a bond in August or September, so we have that cash that we haven't spent. Our largest property tax receipts come in May and September, and so there's a lot of reserves that we have set aside for utilities, for projects, for capital outlay, and so we tried to help them understand that this isn't just cash that we're holding on to for a rainy day. This is actual cash that has been obligated or is being dedicated for a specific project. One of the other things we talked about was the budget process and how it just needs to be simplified. I know when I start talking with you about restricted funds and our budget process, I sort of get this glassy-eyed from all of you, and you work with it at least more than some of the citizens do. So there was conversation about how can this budgeting process be made more transparent for the public. So I'm on a working group with some representatives from the county as well as the city administrator from Fremont and a couple others to, you know, review budget change proposals that are maybe coming down the pipe, as well as trying to come up with some creative ways that we can accomplish property tax reduction while still being able to maintain the level of service that we currently provide.
So question,
Yes.
when you were explaining the budgeting process, who are you explaining that to?
So
That was the group? That was,
yeah, so there was a representative from Nebraska Farm Bureau that was there.
okay.
The state budget director.
I'm thinking some of those people should know this.
And the Pillen's chief of staff.
Okay.
So-
I'm just,
Venture, I guess, a few of those know this.
There was discussion last night at the NRB board meeting, because they're listed in some of the publications and, about the Farm Bureau. And what the citizens that are members, the farmers that are members of the Farm Bureau, don't understand the impact. They're not in favor of this epic tax. The top leadership seems to be the corporate side of Farm Bureau, seems to be the ones that are bringing in different names and wanting changes.
So while I'm on kind of both committees, this budget one, we really haven't had much conversation about EPIC because I think the feeling is that there will probably be something introduced in the legislature in the spring that we will need to be able to digest through and hopefully we able to contribute some ideas before it actually reaches the legislature as a proposal. So we received a request for reimbursement from the developers for North Highlands subdivision as per our reimbursement agreement, and that was included in the claims. They did meet their necessary lot sales with an average price of $64,000, which is under the amount that was listed in the reimbursement agreement. So we will be providing them with that reimbursement per the agreement. The Finance Committee has been having some conversations with 2 employee benefits insurance brokers. Our health and dental insurance renews January 1. So we're in the middle of getting our renewal quotes and considering the options. So hopefully we'll have some contract renewals either at the next meeting or if not then by the first meeting in December. The Board of Public Works is holding their budget review meeting on November 29th, which is Wednesday. And then it will come to the council for an official public hearing. I would encourage you, if you want to hear the details about the budget, to attend that Board of Public Works meeting. And lastly, we did have a good turnout for our second annual Employee Appreciation Banquet. We had probably, I don't know the exact count, but I think we had over half of our full-time employees attend. Last year, we, as we were getting this banquet kind of back up and running, we decided we would start a recognition program for an employee who was shown excellence in public service for their commitment to excellent performance, productivity, loyalty, professional pride, and going above and beyond for their peers and for the community. And this year, it's kind of a decision that Ryan and I make together. There's no monetary award given, it's just a recognition. This year we recognized Travis Beavers for his service. We also recognized several employees for their years of service, with Carolyn Berry being 40 years and then on down the line. So if you have any questions, let me know. On the North Drainage Project, I do not have anything new to report. So.
Okay. Consent agenda. Any questions on that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call.
Creachy?
Yes.
Warford?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. There's non-action items not requiring a public hearing. Ordinance number 2443 to authorize the issuance of combined utility revenue bonds is recommended by the Board of Public Works not to exceed amounts of $4,654,000 relating to the acquisition, construction, improvement, repair, or rehabilitation of the city's sewer system, 30-year bond at zero interest.
And the others, it's all in one ordinance, so.
Oh, we're doing both same time. Okay, the second one is $5,700,000. Basically the same thing. This is 30 years with up to 35% loan forgiveness. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, this has been something that has been waiting a very long time to bring before you. If you recall, I started talking about these loans and the dollar amounts that we'd be getting from the state well over a year ago. In fact, probably a year and a half ago. I guess it was worth our time, right? Patience paid off in a sense where I talked to both of our bankers on the council. Neither of them thought they could maybe match that interest rate right now. That's where, this is a once in a lifetime real opportunity. The Board of Public Works, we talked through, what types of projects we're going to be doing. On the drinking water, the $5.7 million, primarily that's going to be used up in our downtown water project, replacing over 33 blocks of water main and service lines. It'll also hopefully pay for a lot of our looping of our water system to the south side of town. So right now we have a radial feed that feeds Heritage Heights and the hospital, and vice versa. The well that's out there can only pump. So if we lose that pipeline, then we lose service to the south part of Wahoo. And so hopefully these dollars can help with assisting with the finishing of that project also. And so a couple things in these loan agreements I want to point out. There was reference to rate increases that the state of Nebraska recommended as part of the rate increases. I did get confirmation from the state that we would be sufficient we are currently in the middle of a rate study with a consultant. And so the rates at which they recommended, the raises that they recommended, didn't have to be in effect if we can provide, evidence, or we can provide documentation that our rate increases that we're going to be suggested by our consultant will be sufficient for our added debt service. And as far as the debt service goes, again, 30 years at 0% interest, and in the water's case, we're talking about 35% loan forgiveness. So really, we're talking almost $2 million of that money not even having to be paid back. So we're hoping on the sewer side to finish some north sewer expansion. If you guys recall, we're building that Sand Creek sewer currently. To connect that over to Chestnut Street would allow some of the flow that comes from the North Highlands, from Sycamore Hills, from that area of town currently is all being fed. That growth is being fed through our older part of Wahoo, through our system going down the Maple Street right away. And that's a pretty full sewer. And so there's a connection point between that new Sand Creek sewer and Chestnut Street that we can pull some flow off of our north expansion into this new interceptor, and then to our west interceptor that goes, kind of follows the railroad right away down to the wastewater plant, and that'll pull some growth capacity and allow for the older part of town to have a little bit relief off of that. Also an Orange Street sewer project that we're hoping to move forward with next year. Replacing, we have had a lot of sewer issues. Those sewers are essentially, we have almost a dozen homes being served off of 2 4-inches side by side, and it's just kind of a relic of our really old collection system. We hope to get Continental Estates pressure sewer like we have with the Country Club Acres and with what we just did with Cook Sewer Edition. So again, we won't obligate customers to change over to the pressure sewer immediately, but upon failure of their septic system, we will have sewer available for those customers. And lastly, we hope to make some sizable renovations to our wastewater treatment plant. It's about 20 years old. I think it's still, the great thing about that facility is operationally, I think it's going to meet permit limits, but whenever you're exposed to a corrosive and environment running 24 hours a day, equipment, after about 20 years starts to fail. So it's time to start making some improvements, and we can also bring some 21st century automation to the facility and prepare us for, even if permit limits from the Department of Environment and Energy lower, I think operationally we can still meet those without making a wholesale change from our treatment process. So the one thing I do want to point out, there is some differentiation between this project, these SRF dollars, and what you may see in the future, some lead service line replacement. There's a lot of talk right now in the country, and we're currently doing that lead service line inventory. We've been doing the social media and the letters and getting people to take pictures. Our first phase of that is getting an inventory of all the services we have in our water system. And so then the next phase of that will actually be, we have till October of 2024 to complete that inventory. And then we'll have to come up with a plan of replacing a certain percentage of those lead service lines and some of those galvanized lines on an annual basis. And there may be funds available. Well, there is going to be funds available as long as our federal government, keeps their word, which we never have to worry about, right? As those funds will be available not just for us as a utility, but for customers, where right now the customer owns that service line from the curb stop into their home. Hopefully we'll be able to offer grants through through that funding from the federal government and through the state of Nebraska to help alleviate those costs for homeowners on their side of the project. So again, I brought my master plans, and I just want to really speak to how important it was for us to have started back in 2020 right away with the master planning. And what's great is once these dollars were available, once we knew that these loans and this was going to be, we had already outlined and knew what our needs were as a water and sewer system. You're not going to ever be able to fix all of our problems we need with just this loan, but it's a huge step and a huge opportunity. And I think it's going to be a huge investment into our water system that I think for generations this is going to pay dividends. So, are there any questions about it?
Two.
Yeah.
So there are rate restrictions on that loan?
on the water, that was what, 195 pages long? I
Yeah.
tried to wade through that.
There are,
That's like, wow.
on the water page, on page 30, there is some talk of, and this I do have, I got some clarification from the state of Nebraska. So on page 30, they talked about our current revenues and that they would like to see an additional, $6 a month. So from $28.48 as an average residential up to $34.45 per month per residential customer is what they were recommending, or they thought we needed to be able to offset this debt service. And on the sewer, it should be about the same place, about page 30-ish.
But not a requirement.
Not a requirement, but not a requirement in the sense that they're not obligating us to do that. What I got from clarification was that if we have a consultant and a way to prove that we are going to meet the obligations of these debt services through other rate increases, and that we can demonstrate we have sufficient revenues to do so, then they're not going to obligate us to make those rate increases.
I just didn't want us to have something to struggle with.
Agreed.
Years.
That was one of the first things that, even Dave Henke and I, we talked through, and when we found this in here, and I did have some email correspondence back and forth with the state of Nebraska, and did get that clarification. Same with, there's some wording on the projects we're doing and the length of time we have to complete the projects. And all of those things, we were given reassurances that the projects don't have to be exactly outlined for the loans, as long as we're meeting the criteria that would meet SRF, funding, and as long as we're following the SRF guidance, meaning the Davis-Bacon and all of those federal requirements on the construction. Whenever we do sign a contract, though, or do these projects, we're going to be hiring a consultant engineering firm. And part of that there'll be a cost increase for SRF compliance. And so there is that aspect of these, right? You're going to pay a little bit more for construction, and I think it can be anywhere from 10 to 20% more sometimes on projects. Maybe that's a little high, maybe 10 to 15% more, because you do have to meet those Davis-Bacon requirements. And all of our contractors around here are familiar with that and understand meeting those requirements.
Okay. But then the forgiveness part is performance-based. We do things to get forgiven, or how does that work?
No, just that they'll forgive up to 35% of whatever we
Just
take
'cause
out.
we're nice guys.
Completion of spending.
Yeah, based on spending. That is a good point.
Okay.
These are reimbursements, so we will, have to expenditure the money
You
and
build it, then you
Yep,
get
then you get the
prove
money.
you
Mhm.
spend it, then you get forgiven.
Yeah, and so where did this funding come from? Well, it all is back to that infrastructure deal that was passed early on in the Biden administration when they did the infrastructure. Water and wastewater was made a pretty high obligation in that, and so, politics aside, I think this was a good investment in our country's future, and so I think it's good for Wahoo, so.
So I'll go back to the rate because that was the first thing I wrote down too. So we did a rate increase
Right.
9 months ago, a year ago, something like
Yeah,
that.
a
And it
year
was
ago.
specifically, I remember talking about so that we would qualify for these down the road.
That's right.
So that's where this comes from, right?
That-
So
and-
I'm in the right place, right? That's
You
why
are
we were
right.
doing that increase at the time.
Yep.
Was to
And-
get us close enough to qualify.
What I think is partly driving their simplified math here on making I don't think they were accounting for the revenues we were already making in 2023. We're up substantially from 2022 because of those rate increases. And I know this because I'm doing budget, my favorite thing to do. We're preparing for our Board of Public Works budget for 2024, and just looking at our rates, I have a procedure I go through, or a policy, or that's not even the right word. My method is to use actuals from 3 years, but I usually don't use the current year's year to date, so I don't have to worry about trying to correct for year end because it's so seasonal. And so I did, though, however, have to use this year's year to date on the water because our revenues were so much higher in 2023 that 2020 water revenues and 2019 or 2021 revenues are not even really applicable because we're seeing such better revenues. And I have a little bit of a caveat with that because there is a little bit of weather. We were in a drought this year. People watered a lot. But I think we saw great revenues coming all the way through into spring. We were way ahead. And so we have got some very early results back from that rate study. I don't want to go into specifics, but one thing I will, because I don't want to, it hasn't been set yet. But the initial returns are showing that very marginal increases on water and sewer. And at water specifically, that it gave me a sigh of relief because I felt like we did take those aggressive actions in 22, and I was really hopeful that would be demonstrated in a rate study that we wouldn't need aggressive rate increases for our customers again this year. And the preliminary results are suggesting that we do not need to take such aggressive actions. Now, there is going to be a marginal rate increase, but I would say I feel that it's not going to be as impactful on our customers as the 17% rate increase that we had to do on top of an earlier 30% rate increase. So we had some very aggressive rate increases in 2022, and so that has set us up very well for a small rate increase, even with this debt service.
Good conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The ordinance was prepared by Mike Rogers, who is our bond counsel, so he's there as a safety net to make sure that this overlays nicely with the rest of our debt. So.
Yeah. And Joven reviewed this for us also. So this was a document between Melissa and her and the bond agent.
200 pages.
Did you get?
Well, you paid me much less than you did bond counsel.
Somebody in his office read all the
Yeah.
pages.
Direct proportion of pages to.
I read the title page and then looked down at the bottom and said 1 of 41, 1 of 42, and 1 of 100. I'm like, yeah. It's not gonna work for me.
Here's all of them right here. They're ready to be signed.
Yeah. It is. It's a lot, and it's a lot, to hold over ourselves. But boy, again, 0%. I mean, it's money, and we're doing work today. Construction inflation has really outpaced the overall core inflation, and so boy, I think it would just be so silly to turn this money down, and I think we can get a lot of good done today that's going to benefit the future. And the other thing about debt service on very large capital projects is the customers that are going to be utilizing or taking advantage of that existing infrastructure are going to be the ones through their rates paying for these loans. So again, it's in a sense a very fair and equitable way to attack these large capital that, for example, the downtown businesses that will be paying the water rates for the next 30 years will be paying off water mains they'll be using. And again, those water mains should last 100 years. So we'll make our money back many, many times.
What's your time frame then? This gets signed?
Yeah.
When do you go for bids?
We are going to be as aggressive as we can on the bids on downtown water. I would love to see it in December. I'm probably more realistic to January to see getting it out for bids for the downtown water
I'll be
project.
real interested because I'm hearing in general things have slowed down and people are looking for work.
Yeah. I have had conversations with one local contractor that said they're very interested. So that gives me like a lot of really positive. I feel really positive, hopeful that
Perfect timing.
could be perfect timing. So the other projects, though, a lot of the other ones, so for the looping project, we're talking about, kind of following Highway 77. We're going to finish design of that through April of next year, looking to bid in May for 2025. So that project we don't really even foresee trying to tackle in 2024. With our other sewer projects, most of those, the Orange Street sewer, we hope to tackle in 2024. The remainder we're hoping to just work on design work and our wastewater plant renovations, scoping, and perhaps 2025, maybe even as far as 2026, depending on what we want to do. We don't want to stack too many projects. Again, we are limited on staff. We are limited on our capacity for managing too many projects at one time. So we want to try and be smart in the way that we try to execute all these different projects. But the ultimate goal would be to finalize everything by 2026 if we can. And on the sewer, what would be good with that timing on the sewer, we have large bonds that are left over from when we built the wastewater plant that will actually be paid off. It's not just the wastewater plant, it's a combined bond, but that debt service will be gone by 2026.
And that was a similar program, but that was at a 2.5% interest plus a 1% admin fee. And so when the bond rates dropped so significantly, we were able to refinance that for something less than the program.
Okay. It is an ordinance.
Motion to introduce.
Second.
Okay, is there attitude to waive?
Go for it. Motion to waive the 3 readings.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call on the motion to waive 3 readings.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Grapple?
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay, final reading?
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Grapple?
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
Free
Well,
money,
they've
guys.
done it.
Yeah.
Next ordinance is 2444 to create street improvement district number 2023-01 for the construction of improvements for North Highlands Phase 2.
Yes. So on the screen there, you can see the North Highlands Phase 2. We approved the final plat, and they are ready to move forward with the construction of the improvements. The ordinance before you would create the street improvement district, and that gives us the authority then to, after an opportunity for folks to object to the creation of the district, to create the district and then levy assessments against the lot. In this area, there's a small portion that would be general obligation, and that is the additional width on Oak Street. The rest of it would all be, there's no intersections, there's just the over width on the Oak Street, which is the street clear on the left-hand side. The estimated cost for the entire project of sanitary sewer, storm sewer, paving, and water is just over $1 million. There's a lot less work that needs to go into putting these this phase together as far as infrastructure goes. So it would fall under the subdivision agreement and reimbursement agreement that we previously approved when we were looking at the entire subdivision. Both of those, subdivision agreement and reimbursement agreement, were very specific that phase 2 was included as part of
Those price points per lots are still accurate.
Yes. Yep.
And the drainage study that's been so well talked about included this whole thing to begin with.
Yes. Yep. So the actions that you have, the following actions on the agenda, there's the ordinance to create the street improvement district. And in that ordinance, it sets out a publication requirement and then a hearing that we would hold at the end of December on any objections to the creation of the district. The next item on the agenda would be introducing a resolution of necessity for the stormwater and sanitary sewer improvement districts. That process is you introduce the resolution, you don't vote on it, because then your next resolution is to set a hearing date. And that's very similar to the street improvement district, where you have a public hearing to hear any objections to the creation of those districts. And if there are none, or there are some and you feel like there is the necessity to move on, then you actually adopt the resolution of necessity. And again, both of the ordinance and the resolution of necessity give us the ability to levy assessments against the lots when the project's completed. So
So today we need to introduce the ordinance,
We need-
2444.
We need to approve the ordinance to create the street improvement district.
Make that motion.
You introduce the ordinance?
Introduce the ordinance,
I'll second.
okay,
Then what do we do next?
to waive.
Yeah, I'll
Do we
make the
waive
motion to
waive
waive the
now?
3 readings.
Can we waive that one? All right.
Yeah.
Roll call on the motion to waive the 3 readings.
Seconded the.
Keep it simple.
Shane did it.
Shane did.
We all heard it.
Yeah, but
We all heard it.
Pick a name.
I know, I heard him.
just wave a hand.
I've been accused of worse.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Final reading on 2444.
Krejci.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
So is there just a motion to introduce then?
So the next item, which is, yes, the resolution of necessity, it's just a motion and a second to motion to introduce in a second.
It's a confusing process because it's by design, you have an existing set of homes. You want to go in there, you want to do an assessment against those homes. They have the chance to come in and object because they might not want the improvements in the assessment, but it doesn't really apply here, but the same statutory scheme, so you gotta jump through the same hoops.
I'll make the motion for the introduction of the resolution.
Second.
Okay, roll call on the motion to introduce the resolution.
So we're not doing a roll call on this because we
Open.
just introduced it.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda then would be a resolution to set a public hearing date to hear any objections to that resolution that we are.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution for the public hearing date.
I can second that, yes. What she said.
Everybody confused?
Keep this stuff legal.
Clear tonight, right?
Legal and moving, legal and moving.
Okay,
Absolutely.
That we do vote on.
roll call on number 4.
Rappel,
Yes.
Krejci.
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay, we're done with all that.
Yes.
Okay, consideration to move the December 26th meeting to December 28th.
Was that a Thursday?
Yeah, Tuesday to Thursday.
It's a Thursday, there's no golf that night, is there?
Well,
That didn't take long. Well played.
if
The thought crossed my mind. I was like, how could I make, how could I make the
the weather
joke?
stays this way, you never know.
Unless something changes, I won't be in town.
If that doesn't work, that's just our suggestion. You can always propose a different date if that.
We kind of need to have a date proposed though, because in these hearings that we just set, there's
We need,
It'll
we,
be
We
that.
that meeting,
That works
so.
for me.
do you need a motion?
I'm okay with the 28th.
I'll make the motion that we move our December 26th meeting to December 28th, whether or not Carl can be here.
I
or
will
not.
second that.
Yeah, we'll move it to Carl's house.
Is the day after Christmas, that, is that?
The 26th is the Tuesday and it's the
Yeah.
day after Christmas. City Hall's closed.
Okay, roll call on the change of the meeting date.
Rappel,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Warford,
Yeah.
Krejci.
Yes.
Number 6, ordinance,
You were
introduce
gonna say that.
ordinance 2445, renewal of the conditional use permit for North River Auto.
Have we had any complaints?
No, so I
Not
spoke with
about
Travis about this and he does not have a problem with renewing. I can't read that, but is that for a 12-month period for a
It
year?
is a 12-month
I
period.
think you're
That's,
12 months.
that is what I highlighted.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
wanted to consider a longer period for this, we haven't had complaints.
How long's he been there?
Couple of years?
Oh. Has it been that long?
Yeah, I bet so.
Been a couple of
I
years.
did
Is that
shops
something
pretty
we
busy.
need
I
to
don't
keep
see too
renewing?
many cars.
Is there any issue with like not making this come up
We
every
have
12 months?
had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ordinances for this already.
6 years.
This is
But
our
it's
second.
not just been for North Country
Right.
Yeah, I was
Auto,
gonna say it
North
wasn't
River
North-
Auto.
yeah.
It's been
It's for
for
this property.
this
But
property.
when, if we allow this as a conditional use and he sells it to somebody else, this continues on as conditional use.
For the property.
So do you want to, as an example, do a 2-year term? Or
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem doing it as a 2-year term. Yeah. I mean, if it's being allowed as an auto lot, it works for that, so I don't necessarily care who owns it. I don't know that it needs to keep coming up. Does that help them in some way to know that they don't have to deal with us every
Would
12
that be the
months?
same ordinance or we'd have to have a new ordinance? to, if
You
we
would
would extend time.
change that to
I
24
would just
months.
amend this ordinance to say 24 months instead of 12.
I mean, so the use is to, the condition is that he can sell cars, but the mechanic part in the back, it was allowed anyway. Or is that a conditional use as well?
Can you scroll down a little ways?
I mean, my only concern would be if you start collecting more cars that don't get fixed. And
Right.
12 months or 24 months,
I
I don't know if
think-
it matters, but.
I
mean,
think in a NRC, there may be, mechanic allowed as a permitted use.
But
versus
auto
a-
lot, or car sales isn't allowed there? That's what I'm trying to figure
I'd
out.
have
What
to-
about
we
this?
would
Is
have
it-
to
Looks like
pull-
mechanic is
require-
allowed as a permitted use, body shop is not, but auto sales is conditional use. So right now, they can do the mechanic work, and need the conditional work for the sales, they would need a conditional use if they were doing body work. 'Cause I think Vonnick or somebody at one point was maybe
Yeah, Ron was back there.
back there.
Yeah.
So I think it probably included that
Yeah.
at that time too.
Are any of those three something we wouldn't want in regular NRC? I mean,
Well,
they don't wanna have to jump through all the.
Problem is
hoops to change
NRC
right now, but-
extends to a lot of truly residential areas, right? And along Chestnut, of course, I would agree with you, it makes sense to allow.
Well, I'm thinking, any place that we would allow a mechanic, why would you not allow a body shop in a place you would allow a mechanic? Is there something different about those things?
Well, body shops, typically you get into paint storage,
Oh,
there's
okay.
a lot
Alright,
of
fair enough.
the fumes, the
Yes.
safety, those things that come into play a little bit.
Does this require an ordinance?
Yes,
This-
it does.
Yeah.
I don't know, does anybody else have a problem with going 24 months or just giving it a little time for we have to do it again?
No.
I'd make a motion to introduce it 24 months.
The only comment that I would have is if North River Auto moved out and someone else moved in
Is
and
this
they weren't,
reset?
no, it's with the property.
It goes with the property.
They may not,
So add that
the
language.
next tenant or
Okay.
may
Oh,
not
then
manage
if
the
12
property
months is
the
what
same
we're
way.
doing, we'll just keep it that way. I'd make a motion to introduce as is.
Second.
That is an ordinance.
Motion waived.
Second.
Roll call on the waive of three readings.
Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Final reading, roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Number 7, ordinance 2446, renewal of conditional use for Volberville.
Back up one. Sorry.
I can't see from this
I
angle.
can see the board. Up one from where you are. There you
Here?
go,
Oh.
6. There you go.
That's the disadvantage of reading out the back of my head.
See, we're supposed to be on 7 now.
One
Sorry.
more.
No, next one. No,
There you
there you
go.
go. That's the one.
So I did also speak with Travis on this, and his recommendation is 12 months, as we have been doing in the past.
Where's this one at?
This is located on the south side of First Street, on the east side of the East Service Center. It's the Voberall property.
We have had cleanup issues in the
In
past.
past years, we've had multiple discussions.
Yeah.
Burning this and that, and it's been a quiet year, hasn't it?
Yes. We did talk about it a little bit at our department head meeting, and I think there might still be a little burning of garbage that happens there, but in terms of this auto repair service, I don't think there's issues, but Travis was recommending a 12-month renewal.
I would make that motion,
I'll second that.
or introduce the ordinance, I guess. Motion to waive the 3 readings.
I'll second that as well.
Okay, roll call on the motion to waive three readings on 2446.
Krejci,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Final reading.
Krejci,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Number 8, agreement between the city's Wahoo City Seniors Center Association and City of Wahoo regarding the purchase of a vehicle for the Wahoo Busy Wheels program.
So the Wahoo Senior Center Association is an organization that exists to accept memorials and funds to help with seniors. They also take the surplus revenue from the thrift store and manage that. And through their board, through their group, they have been able to contribute funds to things like replacing carpet in the senior center, or providing some of the share of replacing the roof on the Wahoo Senior Center. And now they want to purchase a new vehicle for the Wahoo Busy Wheels. The Busy Wheels is managed by city staff, and they manage the volunteers, they manage the maintenance, but we don't contribute any funds to the purchase of the vehicle or the cost of the maintenance, the cost of insurance. It's all paid for by the Senior Center Association. They have reached an agreement with with the Sid Dillons to purchase a vehicle, and would like to get it updated with the necessary handicap portions of it. But their money is tied up in a CD until January, the middle of January. And so because the vehicle is on the city's insurance, because it is a program that we operate and we manage, we have accepted donations from the senior center to cover the cost of those vehicle purchases in the past. Most of the time, it's a quick, we write the check, they make the donation, there's no issue. But because they want to purchase the vehicle now, and their funds aren't available until the middle of January, I felt like this is something that should come before you, just as a protection for them and for me, in case something happens to the vehicle, in case something happens to the funds, which I don't see happening, but it's just a protection. They have agreed to a $10,000 deposit with us, and then follow up after their CD and their investments are available, the cash is available with the balance of the vehicle. And
Have they already picked a vehicle, or?
Yeah, I haven't been involved in any of that, so I think it's.
The cost that would be.
I think they said the total cost by the time the vehicle and getting it outfitted is $90,000. So
Well, it's got lift on it, doesn't it?
probably, yeah. I know it's not a van; it's something other than a van.
Minibus?
What?
Is it like a minibus?
No, I don't believe so.
So it will be on the city's insurance, but we just get rebate, they pay us back.
Yes, right.
So this is
It's a timing thing more than.
Yeah.
we're legally binding them to make a donation because we're paying for it. And so the city ends up owning it, but they pay for it.
Correct.
And we're
They're
legally
providing-
binding them to make the
You're
donation.
obligating
Yeah.
them, contractually obligating to pay you, yeah.
It's weird, but I like it.
Joe, when there's nothing to be concerned with there.
The only issue would be bankruptcy, insolvency, that sort of thing, where the contract isn't worth the paper it's written on,
You
right?
could end up owning
At
it.
which point, we own the vehicle
Yeah.
that gets managed by us anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stinks.
You made an expenditure
Right.
you didn't necessarily want to make,
Right.
right?
I'd make a motion to approve the agreement.
I'll second.
Any other questions? Roll call on the agreement.
Worker,
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Raffle?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Number 9.
I just want to make a comment on the thrift store. The thrift store is, I know that they receive memorials and they receive donations, but the thrift store for the senior center has been a very great combination, right? The way that the facility is set up. It gives
Absolutely.
seniors an opportunity to be involved, to participate. It, gives community members the opportunity to make donations or make purchases. My children love going to the thrift store to buy stuff.
It's a busy place.
It is a busy
There's
place,
lot of
and
cars
it's,
there.
yeah, they prices are very reasonable, but they still make money, so.
And that is owned and operated by the city as well, but done primarily off of donation. There's no cost to the city to do that as well.
Right.
Okay.
Kevin has something worked out with the senior center as far as like cost of utilities. They pay their share of the utilities and such, so.
Trying to figure out if we ever end up doing anything with the civic center, that it needs to be expanded and take that space. Do we need to find a space for that thrift store to go to, the whole senior center?
Yeah.
Someplace to go, is that a city obligation, or is that something the senior center?
I think some of the city are doing to support in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out, so.
Okay, the last item, consideration of an amendment to the agreement, rural planning. City
Why would they
Wahoo
say that? That's just
Nation
You
Study.
can't come up with a better name. You can't put
If you hear her explanation of why she picked this, your mind would be changed. It's a very compelling story why she picked 5 rural planning.
And it wasn't just to aggravate people trying to.
No, it's a tongue twister for
Please
certain.
pass it so I don't have to repeat it some other night.
So as I explained before, she is asking for an additional amount not to exceed $7,500. It would be charged at an hourly rate of $75, but a guarantee that it wouldn't go over $7,500. For our
Essentially,
previous
what you're saying
agreement was $10,000, and she won. It has taken a little bit to figure out what exactly the right format is for putting this all together. I don't know.
And I'll just add, there was in her defense, it was a lot of moving parts, and we asked a pretty big overall area, and she is taking into consideration utilities, and there's been a lot of complexity with utilities and power districts, and so in her defense, even just from my perspective, it's probably a bigger project than she thought she was taking on.
That's what I was trying to figure out, like, we're literally, I mean, she's discounting this to $75, saying it's 100 hours more at 125, that's what would have been 12,500, that's more than double what she had originally expected, so I'm like, were we massively underquoted, or are we
I also think she admittedly, when we talked to her about it, she said this is something she's never done before. She was sort of like shooting darts in the dark for a price, and there have been, it has been a big ask in terms of.
It was a big, because we didn't just pick off a section north of Wahoo, right? It was pretty all encompassing of, and then she's grading and giving us a lot of those.
Well, and we did you recall, a previous annexation study, but at that time we had very specific areas, like there's 13 houses here and there's 15 houses here, and it was very definitive information about how we could identify that area, how it was zoned, how it was being used, and we started just, those were identified in a document. This is a little bit different in that it's not developed, right? And we're not 100, you have to incorporate the zoning and the lay of the land and the utility plan and in looking at power districts and, so.
So it sounds like you've been involved as much as she has been.
So not as much as she has.
But we have time invested in this project as well.
Yes.
So you have a pretty good feeling, the end result will be acceptable.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
You need this to
And
finish the
I've
project.
seen a bunch of RFPs on planners, and she tends to be significantly cheaper than most that you see, so.
Probably
I
not
would
the next
imagine
time.
that might have been a little bit of it, is that it was
Learning curve.
underestimated.
Did you feel that's fair then, 17,500?
I do, I think.
Yeah.
I think if we'd asked other contractors, it would have been probably substantially more from the get-go. They would have. And again, I think that goes back to her. This was a big one, and I think she probably just didn't wrap her head completely around how much was going to go into it, and how much we were asking.
What's your time frame?
She thought that with an extension, she's comfortable with the format that we have set up now, and it's a matter of pulling data and plugging it into the format. So she thought 30 days. So I would guess by the beginning of January, we would have a product for you to review.
Interesting.
And just playing devil's advocate, what happens if we decide we don't want to spend any more money on the project?
We start over.
We just have
I think
unfinished
we-
data turned into us?
I think the framing of the agreement, though, was for based on hourly services, not a completed project. So she has the ability.
She just
contractually
stopped, that's what I said,
say
we just
that.
have
Yeah.
unmanageable data
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Another $7,500 to dumb it down for the rest of us folk.
Yeah.
That's how I'm reading that. Like, I gotta put it in a way that these jarheads are gonna understand. That's gonna cost some more money and a lot of time. Gotcha.
It's all, I would say, even for me, like, trying to format the concept or the way in which it's gonna be delivered is, yeah, it's not easy, because it's, for anyone, I think, it's a lot, it's very complex.
So that's the area we're taking in all city limits, or a big area.
So the map that we provided to her had certainly everything within the expressway, but also areas around
Okay.
the expressway.
So this should
So
be
there's-
usable data for a long time.
Yes,
For a
right,
long time,
yeah.
Not meaning that anybody's suggesting that's what we wanna do, just that we have the data,
That's what we wanted to look at.
that's
Yeah.
right.
I remember that meeting.
And I also think that it is, you know, if we move to an area, a project is proposed and we're, you know, there's a conversation going back and forth about whether annexation is appropriate or not appropriate. I think this definitely gives you some foundation for making that decision, right? These are the facts about this property. This is the lay of the land. This is the utility information. All of those facts that help justify or support your decision for annexation, which I think was what we were looking for from the project. I don't remember how many. We probably have 25 or 30 different areas. So.
Yeah. Again, keeping in mind the way we broke it up, right? We tried to put certain parcels together and other parcels in other areas. So yeah.
I mean, just hate having them come back, but it sounds like we're invested in this project pretty well, and we should
Yeah.
get something usable out of it.
I definitely would hate to see us not get something usable out of how much we put into it so far.
Yeah, I mean, $7,500 doesn't break the bank compared to a lot of other things we do. I just hate saying we're gonna spend 75% more on a project than we were originally quoted, but it sounds like it's logical, the reason we have to. That being said, I would make the motion to approve it.
I'll second that.
Other questions? Roll call on the agreement to amend.
Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay, mayor's comments, really none. I would ask the council members, if you're going by or if you go into Simon's home store, he's just repainted the entire outside of the facility.
Oh, that's
It
great.
really looks great. And I'm gonna be reaching out for some support from planning and zoning and maybe council to start working on the area, on the east edge of our downtown business area that are not in compliance on some things, where right-of-ways are being utilized, type of thing. To get that, as, you know, we get Wahoo Super into a structure and we want that end of town look a little better than it is right now. So,
Any updates on our drainage issues going north end of town? Did we go in any direction?
I
Have a meeting?
I am intending to schedule a meeting. I just have
Okay,
not
that's-
gotten it
it's
scheduled.
on your agenda somewhere.
Yes.
Budget and,
Auditors.
auditors. That's, the other one I was gonna ask about is where we are with, you know, making sure that we keep our foot on the gas with trying to get something done with City Hall, but also understanding that budget and auditors may have slowed us down for a moment, but I will poke the bear again that I,
Okay.
once again, would love to make sure that that project does not fall by the wayside for any more time.
still working on it. Council, anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.